This story time is gonna be crazy. Welcome back, guys. This is the story time of my experience with the fake prophetess. I wanted it to be like a story time while I'm getting ready, but I didn't like my background on the last video. Let's get into it. This happened around 2011. So I was working at a salon, and the salon was owned by my friend's mom. My friend, we're gonna call her Lena. Lena's mom owned the salon, and I happened to work in it, and me and Lena became very close very quickly. And there was this one particular client who started coming in quite often. We're gonna call her Desiree. So Desiree was a client that was coming in quite often. Around this time, me and Lena, we were trying to kind of get back in the groove of getting to build a relationship with God. So we were both brought up in the church, but we're now older. I believe I was 21 and I think she was maybe like 24, 25-ish. She was a little bit older than me. And so we're trying to start this walk with God on our own. We had this hunger inside of us that we're not really understanding. So we would talk about God quite often, me and her, but we didn't have a home church. We didn't have any of those things. So back to Desiree now. Desiree would come into the salon, get her hair done, and she was just good vibes. We liked her. We're like, oh, this woman is so cool. She was so funny. She would come and she would make us laugh with just bust jokes. Like, it was just good vibes every time Desiree came into the salon. And Desiree also said she was a Christian and she would talk about God. So we're like, yes, okay, we love her. And Desiree was a little bit older than us too. So I would say maybe she was probably in her 30s. We started to look up to her. We started to look at her as like a mentor, older sister, and we really respected her because she talked about God so passionately and she has so much knowledge about God, at least from our perspective. Mind you, we are trying to figure this thing out that we're feeling inside of us that we're not really too sure what it was, but we know God was calling us. You already know how it is when God is calling you. You can run, but honey, you cannot hide. Desiree, Lena, and I quickly become very close, the three musketeers. We started doing everything together, hanging out, going to each other's houses, just doing life together. Desiree had 2 kids, so sometimes she'd even come to the salon without having to get her hair done. She'll just like go drop off her kids at school and then she'll come by and just chill with us. So eventually Desiree ended up telling me and Lena that she was a prophetess, or she hears from God. So it started off with little things. How we started to believe her is because she had this guy. So she used to take the bus to come and see us. There was a bus driver that she had this huge crush on, and she was telling us that this is her husband. God told her that this is her husband, and we're just like, are you sure? Because this man was fine. He was fine. I ain't gonna lie, he was fine. And you know, I was just like, it just seemed kind of like out of her league. Not to say she was unattractive or not worthy of this bus driver, but we were doubting it a little bit. Let's just say that, okay? I don't know how, y'all, but her and the guy ended up exchanging numbers, and she would tell us things about him that she was seeing in the spiritual realm. Certain things she would tell us, and it all came out to be true. So we're like, okay, God really be talking to this woman. So we're like, all right. So we started to believe her. And I remember I was telling her a story about like a girlfriend of mine that I had. And then she was just like, that girl, she wants your man. At the time I was with my son's dad. She's like, that's not a friend. That's not your friend. And Desiree had this thing where every time she would like tell a prophecy, she would start speaking in this tongue. She'll start speaking in the tongue, and then she starts shaking her head. And it was just when I think about it, I'm just like, yo, like this was really my life. Like I really witnessed this. I actually lived this. That's crazy. I swear, some things that happened to me feels like a telenovela / Nollywood mix blended together. Anyway, so Desiree, she's telling me that this girl, she's not your friend, she wants your man. If given the opportunity, she would sleep with him, stay away from her. And then she starts doing the speaking in the tongue thing and shaking her head, and she's like, they're telling me. She always used to go, they're telling me, they're saying, and then she'll do that. I can't even remember how it was, but it was just like a weird tongue, like she was speaking. And I was just like, oh my gosh, okay, we're naive. Mind you, we don't have a relationship with God. So that was the first thing that happened that made us start listening to anything that Desiree would say to us. And after that, then I ended up telling her about this, my friend that I was kind of having issues with a little bit. And she was like, yeah, that's not your friend. You need to let go of this girl, blah, blah, blah. I didn't even think twice. I just pulled away from this girl. And then the same thing happened, which was funny enough. The same thing happened with my friend Lena. Lena would talk about this friend that she knew since she was like in like elementary school. She had a group of girls that were like her best friends. Desiree was like, she said that apparently that girl has slept with Lena's man. But that girl is actually the person that introduced Lena to her man. So it was crazy, but we believed her because then she started doing the tongue thing. And every time she did the tongue thing, we knew it was real. But we're also kind of like kids in a candy store. We wanted to see it. We liked it. We felt like, ooh, we felt special because we're like, ooh, God bless us with somebody who has direct contact with him. He's going to be telling us things. He's going to be protecting us. Like, ooh, we are good. That's how we were looking at it. Little did we know. So it started off like that with like the friends that we had, and hindsight, she was slowly isolating us from our friends because then it got to a point where we really didn't hang out with nobody else. It was just the three of us. We were all each other had, and she became very involved in our lives. She knew everything. She knew my man. She knew my friend's man. We got to a point where we felt like if we want to make a move, we wanted to call her and ask her first to see what God is telling her about it. Like, it got to that point. She had said things that actually happened. Another situation was I was telling her about another friend of mine. Mind you, every single time she had a prophecy, every time she seen something was after we told her a story. She didn't just come up and start telling us, oh, this is da 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 da. But if we're talking about something, then she starts doing the tongue thing, and suddenly it's like everything we told her, the things that we would tell her would trigger her into her prophecy. So one day I was telling Desiree something about my friend. I had this friend that we were friends from the age of 12 years old, and we were just, that was my best friend pretty much at the time. And I used to be like, that was my soulmate. I'm like, if God could send me a man that's like this girl, I would be good. I really believe that this girl was my soulmate. We're not friends now, so that's that. Anyways, so I was telling Desiree about this girl, and you know what Desiree told me, y'all? She started her and then like shaking her head and started speaking in a weird tongue or whatever. I don't even want to try to imitate it. But she started telling me that this friend of mine isn't gonna live long, that she's gonna die early because her spirit is too gentle for this world. She told me that this girl's like an angel. She doesn't belong in this world. And I remember like being so emotional. I started crying. She's like, yeah, and you can't tell her. You're not allowed to tell her. If you tell her, the Holy Spirit will be mad at you. That's another thing she used to do. She used to make it seem as if like God was an angry God. Like she'll say, if you don't do this, like she'll tell us something, tell us to do something, and she's like, if you guys don't do it, like the Holy Spirit is gonna be angry at you. There was times where she would straight say, if you don't do this, the Holy Spirit will kill you. And we believed it because we didn't have our own personal relationship with God. So we believed that God was like a do this or I'm gonna beat you. You know what I'm saying? That's the type of God she was portraying to us. So, Jordan! Sorry, my son, he's playing his games and he's so loud. Anyways, she's like, you can't tell her, you just gotta pray about it because she's not supposed to be here for long. So I remember going home and I was so sad. And at the time, I was living in sin because I was living with my son's dad at the time. So I went home and I was so sad. And he's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Why are you crying? And I'm just like, this person, I'm not gonna say her name, I'm not gonna live long. And he's just like, what? And I'm like, she's not gonna live long because Desiree told me, because he knew Desiree. Actually, they had like a little special bond because they were both Jamaican and Desiree liked them and they just clicked. So I'm like, Desiree told me, and he just like, well, like, what if it's not even true? Because he was kind of like on the fence about it. I was like, I don't know. Everything else she said was real. So I was so emotional. He was like trying to comfort me, and I'm like, no, I need to be alone. I need to be alone. So I remember going into the room and he was trying to talk to me, and I was so upset. I did not want to talk to him. And then he ended up going out that night. And he's like, oh, my friend has like some event, whatever, so I'm gonna go out. And I was like, yeah, that's fine, you could go. And the thing is, my son's dad was not the type of person to go out. He wasn't really like, he was always home. Like, we had other issues, but him not being home or going out, hanging out with friends wasn't one of the issues that we had. Like, he actually loved being with his family, which was me and my son. And so he went out and I wasn't even worried about it until the night. I remember ringing him down, calling him down, and he was not answering his phone. I'm like, what is wrong with this guy? Like, this is not like him. So the next day in the morning, I end up calling Desiree to tell Desiree, I've been calling this man, he's not home, which is not like him. So I tell Desiree, like, I've been calling this guy down, he's not answering. I don't know if something happened to him. I called his friends, nobody's answering. I have no idea what's going on. And then she started the Or like on the phone, I could hear her head shaking, going, and it would always go like back and forth like that. You know, I make my wig come off now. Then she's just like, oh, he cheated on you. He cheated on you. He's cheating on you or something like that. And I'm like, oh, my heart just dropped. Like, or I should say my heart sunk. I was like, what? She's like, oh, he cheated on you. He cheated on you. She starts doing the tongue thing. And automatically in my mind, because she always spoke the truth, I was like, oh my God, this guy cheated on me. Like, I started freaking out. And then not too long after, who walks through the door? He walks through the door. He's like, I'm so sorry. Like, I got drunk. And I'm just like, oh, no, honey. Like, it wasn't just drunk. I heard you did this. Did you cheat on me? He was like, no, I didn't. Like, we were fighting because he's like,
no, I didn't. Why would you say that? You're crazy. You're crazy.
He's like, guys, they're all trying to make you seem like you're crazy when you're not crazy. You know what I'm saying? So that's like, you're crazy. So then I called Desiree. I'm like, he's saying that, like, he didn't. So Desiree gets on the phone with him. She gets on the phone. No, actually, I put her on speaker. She just like,
you have to tell her the truth. You have to tell her the truth because if you don't tell her the truth, you're going to go to hell.
I can't make this up. Yo, this woman, oh my God. She's like, you're going to go to hell. I kid you not, this man confessed. Guys, he confessed. The man was like, yeah.
I did cheat on you. I'm sorry I cheated on you. I'm sorry.
And I was like, yo, she didn't lie. So I was so pissed. I was like, you had to get out. He had to leave because that wasn't going on. So now it's just me, Desiree, and Lena, the three amigos. Actually, before my son's dad left, I remember because I kept feeling that urge as if like God wanted me to go to church or God was calling me. And I was just like, okay, well, God, like I feel like you want me to go to church, which is crazy that I didn't have a relationship with God, but I could feel the calling. That's deep. So I told God, I'm like, God, if you want me to go to church, then like I have no idea where to find a church. I'm not going back to my Congolese church that I grew up in. I ain't doing that. I had just prayed and asked God, if you want me to go to a church, you have to find me a church. You have to send somebody who's gonna take me to a church or show me a church because I don't know where to go. Like I have no idea where to begin. I didn't even drive those times. So one day I remember I went to the bus stop and I see a big flyer and it was a flyer of a church and they were having, what do you call it? A crusade. They were having a crusade and it was like an African church. I was like, boom, that's my answer. I took a picture of it. And so I told him, I remember telling him, and he was like, okay, I'm down to go. And which was kind of crazy because he wasn't really into God like that. But he's like, no, I'm down to go. And we actually had started going to the church. So when that whole thing happened with him like cheating on me, we had started going to the church, y'all. Yeah, we were going to the church together. After he left, he was still going to the church, which is crazy. I was just like, why are you still going here? You're so annoying. But he loved the church. And so now I'm just like a single girl with Desiree and Lena. And we're just doing our own thing. And like throughout our friendship, oh my gosh, I missed another important part of the story. Oh God, there's so much. There was just so much. Once again, before my son's dad left, I don't have family here in Canada, right? So, and he does, but their relationship was kind of weird. So we didn't really have a lot of people to watch our son for us. But so we never really did a lot of dating. There's a lot of, like, we missed out on the couple stuff because the first year and a half of our relationship, I got pregnant, like we were parents. And everything we did was with our child. So I remember one time we really wanted to go out. We're like, no, we need to go and enjoy our life. And Desiree kept insisting. She's like, oh no, guys, if you want to go out, just leave your son with me. Leave Jojo with me. I'll watch him. That's my baby's name. He's, well, not a baby no more. He's 13 now. But she's like, just leave him with us, with me. I'll watch him. And we're like, oh my God, finally we have a babysitter. Yes. So we're like, okay, we're gonna go out. And so we went and we dropped off our son by her house. And we went out, we were supposed to go to a club. So we go to the club, and the club that we went to, they're like, oh, it's 25 and over. And I wasn't 25 yet, but my son's dad was 25, but I wasn't 25. So then we're trying to find another place to go. But for some reason that night, I don't know, it was just God. Like, I'll come back to the story at the end of the story, at the end of this video. But like, we tried going different places, it just wasn't working out. So we were just like, oh, we're so upset, and it was cold that night too. We're like, you know what, I'm tired. I was wearing heels. I'm like, I'm tired. Let's just go back. Like, so we went back, picked up our son, and then ended up going back home. So it was literally a span of like maybe 2 hours. We didn't even get to enjoy our night the way we wanted to enjoy our night. When we finally had a babysitter, it was so annoying, but made sense later. Now I'm going to the church. I joined the worship team, and I was just like really starting to build a relationship with God, like starting to know God for myself, until this one moment where I was praying and I felt like the Holy Spirit telling me, it was so audible, Lena belongs here. And I was like, oh my God. And then I remember going to sing up in the pulpit, and I'm hearing it again as and it was a time of worship. We're just worshiping. hearing that Lena belongs here. And I was like, God, I already tried to invite her, but she didn't want to come. So I told God, I'm going to ask her again. And this is going to be the last time I'm going to ask her, you touch her heart. And when I asked her that time, she was like, you know what? I kind of been feeling like I should come and visit. And she started coming to the church too. So that was really dope. We never invited Desiree to that church because she had her own church and she lived so far from like where the area that we were. But let's talk about how God exposed the devil. So how that happened was after, you know, I was still like separated from my ex, and we ended up getting back together after that, but that's, yeah. I remember it was almost the end of the year, and I was really praying that God would remove anything, just cleanse my life, remove anybody that's not supposed to be in my life. I wanted to really become intimate with God. It was a time where I was like trying to learn what my purpose was in God. Like it was just, you know, when in the beginning stages, it was just fresh. I had that hunger. I just wanted to be consumed with God. I just wanted to be in his presence at all times. This was like my first initial like trying to build a relationship with God on my own. I was like, God, either reveal, expose them, and take them out of my life. And not too long after, it was like almost December. No, it was December actually. And I remember Lena calls me and she's like, girl, like, which man are you talking to? I'm like, I'm not talking to anybody. She just like, yeah, well, Desiree said that you had a man up in your house this day. And I'm like, no, I didn't have a man in my house. I haven't had a man in my house. Oh, she said like it was a specific day. I'm like, no, I never had a man in my house. And she's like, are you sure? Because like she did her whole, you know, and she started speaking in tongues. I was like, girl, why would I lie to you? No, I didn't. And then she went back and told Desiree, and Desiree was like, she's lying. She had a man. Like, and the crazy part was like, I don't know why it was such a big deal anyways, even if I did have a man in my house, you know, but she was like, she's lying. She had a man in her house. Like, she just made such a big deal out of it. And I was like, and I even started to trip out myself. I was like, did I have a man in my house? Did I? Like, maybe I don't remember that part. Like, I don't know. I was just like thinking about it, but I know damn well I didn't have a man in my house. She called me. She's like, why are you lying? You had a man in your house, and why aren't you telling the truth? I'm like, I did not have a man. Like, it was so crazy because I'm like, why would I lie about having a man in my house? She's like, they told me. And that was always her thing, they. And it's like, who is they? Who is they? Which spirits? We didn't even book all of that till later on. But she's like, they told me. And then she starts doing the tongue thing. You're lying, you're lying. And in that moment, that's when I realized something was off with her. I was like, nope, nope. And then I just started to think about everything. This is weird. She's lying. And I'm like, if she's lying about this, but she's been right in the past before. She said things that were true. And then I thought about the prayer that I was praying. And it's funny too, because right before that, I started to feel some type of way about her. There were certain things about her character that I didn't really like. Because I was like, you're such a woman of God, but like, there were certain things that she was willing to do that made no sense to me. Like, she was a very sexual person. She was like very angry. And there were certain things that she would say that just was not godly. And I would be like, as a woman of God, why are you like this? You know? So I started to kind of doubt it, but I would also feel guilty for doubting certain things because I'm like, ooh, God's going to punish me because that's his prophetess that he's using. Like, and yeah, so when that situation happened, I was like, nah, no, like, this is not right. I told Lena like it was a lie, and Lena, she didn't know what to believe, right? So she was kind of like, I don't know, girl, like it's weird. Let me tell you, after that last conversation I had with Desiree, never spoke to her again. Never spoke to her again. And then it was later on that as I started to get closer to God and I started to understand who God was for myself, that this woman was fake. No, let me correct that. It wasn't even that she was fake. She was a witch. I'm just straight up say it. She was a witch. Some people may be like, oh, maybe she was just a psychic. Nah, it was deeper because all them spiritual head movements, speaking in tongues she used to do now, it was way deeper. So I don't know what she was tapping into, but it was not the spirit of God. Right? Because I started to really evaluate just her character. Did she have the fruits? And I was like, yo, this woman was not of God. I realized that after, and eventually Lena ended up getting her own revelation because when I stopped talking to her, she was still talking to her. She was kind of stuck in between. She didn't know if she should believe me or she should believe her. I think she would lean more towards her because I remember at that point I felt like, oh my God, but this was my girl before. It seems like she was kind of distancing herself from me. But like later on, she ended up coming to a realization and we were both like, we will talk about it. Like, we cannot believe we experienced this. Like, this was such a crazy experience. I had a conversation with my father and I told him, until this day, it's like that. I told God, whatever you need to tell me, please tell me. If I'm not listening, then confirm it with someone else. Because I realized that just like God could speak to a prophet, just like God could speak to your pastor, could speak to whomever, he could speak to me. It's my life. It's my situation. So why wouldn't God speak to me? The only reason God would not speak directly to me is if I don't have a relationship with him. If I don't have an intimate relationship with him, then he can't talk to me, because how could I hear from him? I won't be able to hear from him because I'll be too distracted, or I don't know his voice. But I just asked God, I was like, Father, please speak directly to me. I will build my relationship with you. I will try to be more in tuned just so I could hear you. And if I don't listen, then talk to someone else, but let it be a confirmation. I don't want to hear nothing new about me from somebody. I was 21 years old, or 21, 22, because that lady was in our lives for like a year and a half. From that age to now, it's been like that. God speaks to me, and if I don't hear, he confirms with someone else. I think for a moment, like, God just probably didn't send nobody to come tell me nothing, because I probably wouldn't have listened anyways. But nowadays, like, people will tell me things, but it's always confirmations. It's always a confirmation. Long story short, build your own relationship with God. Don't let nobody come and trick you and tell you that God is like this or God is like that. She had us believing that God was like this dictator. Like, it's my way or not, because that's what she would do. She'll tell us a prophecy, and she's like, well, if you don't do it, then God is going to do this. Like, you know, but that's not God. And I didn't know that until I got to know God. That was, I think, one of the biggest misconception in that whole situation that I learned, was that she really had us thinking that God was this mean, scary man, when he's the most loving, caring, patient, merciful, great. What? Are you kidding me? When I think back, I'm just like, damn, I really left my son with this woman. I left my child with this woman, but God definitely gave me that peace. God spoke to me later on and told me that my son was protected, that she wasn't able to touch my child. As a matter of fact, she was actually uncomfortable while my son was there, which I think I remember she was happy when we picked him up. She wasn't comfortable when my son was there because he definitely had the fire of the Holy Spirit surrounding him. He had angels guarding him, you know what I'm saying? Because that's one thing about God. He will protect us even when we don't see it. The crazy thing is, she said bad things about almost every single person that was in our lives, except for my best friend at the time. And the irony with that is that this best friend of mine didn't even believe in God. And I didn't really find that out until we stopped being friends, because later on we stopped being friends. Like, and I found out that she didn't even believe in God. And I'm like, when I think back of just everything, I'm like, damn, the irony. It's crazy how the enemy works. It's the same schemes he always have. He's gonna try to isolate you, distract you, fill you with lies, steal your joy. There's just certain things that I've been through in my life that it's almost as if things came at me throughout my life to make me not believe in God, to make me not trust God, to make me pull away from God, to actually do the opposite of what I ended up doing, which was getting closer to God. You know, growing up in a home where you grew up going to church, but then you're watching these parents of yours that go to church just living this crazy life, like, you know, and God has kept me. That's all I have to say. God kept me. I've learned so much, and I'm still learning. The top 3 things that I could probably say I learned, number 1 was getting to know who God was. Getting to know that God was actually loving. He cared about me. He wasn't a it's my way or the highway type of God. I mean, it really is, but he doesn't come off like that. He comes off so lovingly, like you almost want to go in his direction. You know, he disciplines with love, unless you just hard-headed. And then you just gonna have to feel it yourself. But the second thing I learned is building a relationship with God, learning to be more intimate with God. And then the last thing is learning how God speaks to me. God speaks to everyone differently. He's a father. Every kid, he has a separate relationship with each and every single one of his kids. And I had to learn how God speaks to me. And before even that, like, I had to really start reading his word. Reading his word made me understand who he was. And reading his word also made me understand how he speaks to me. And reading his word also made me more intimate with him. It was a very crazy story with this fake prophetess, but I made it. Mama, we made it. We made it out. And yeah, I just had PTSD. Once again, thank you so much for watching this video. Like I always say, I hope this video was able to help you dig a little deeper, see things that you haven't been seeing. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. and share this video. Until next time. Like, stay up. I hope I got every part. I hope I didn't miss any part. No, if it's delayed, it's my makeup. The blush, look. But look at God using all my stories. Blush is my favorite color. I actually feel bad. It's late. It's late.